really positive trend in the midst of all this. So that's my great hope, is the spiritual hope that the young men that are lost, and if any young man is listening to this right now, like stop watching porn, stop, smoking weed, stop drinking endlessly, find yourself back to church. That will reorient your life.
I agree.
And do what the church tells you to do, right? Find a woman, marry her, provide, have more kids than you can afford. That's my advice for young men.
Yes.
Don't play the victim, even though you legitimately can play the victim card on everything we've said.
I agree.
The mindset of a victim is parasitic to your soul.
I completely agree.
Hello, thanks for checking out this video. So today I'm going to be talking about two themes or two talking points that are very popular with the online right and various niche groups and stuff like that, especially libertarians and white identitarians. There's a couple of crossover points here that they often both talk a lot about. One is white birth rates and the decline of white birth rates and the idea of a white replacement theory, that sort of thing. Why are whites not reproducing, and how do we fix that, and is it a crisis? And then the other idea is fiat currencies and how they're bad and we need to get rid of them and have a finite currency like a gold-backed currency or something, or Bitcoin, so that our economy can't be manipulated. And I don't think that these people, now that I've been engaging in dialogue with them for a long time and I've gotten to understand them sort of, or observe them, they don't understand that these two ideas are completely antithetical to each other. They want more white people. They want the population to expand, but they want less money, less currency, less a finite currency. And this is, this is an example of Dunning-Krueger syndrome. So they know enough to think they know a lot, but they don't know enough to understand like why this stuff doesn't make any sense, right? Like, and a lot of it comes from online conspiracies that can be debunked if people were more skeptical and less tribal, but they're not. And in response to some points that were brought up in the last videos I published, human beings are a tribal animal. We are an evolved primate, and we are absolutely tribal. The thing is, the more intelligent you are, the more you're able to be metaconscious and sort of overcome your tribalness, which is a evolutionary product. And when you say, I'm being tribal, or I'm engaging in tribal identity politics, then by definition you're admitting that you're not being objective, you're being tribal, which means you're being biased, which means you'll have your own binding and blinding going on when you're looking at things. And this is really clear with a lot of these white conservative guys that are projecting so much without understanding what's going on. And I've been engaging in dialogue, like I said, with quite a lot of people, and there's a couple of people that I'm thinking about specifically that represent a demographic of people when I'm saying this. But I know that there's a segment of white libertarians that are also Christians, and I've been talking to one guy, and he's convinced that the white birth rate has gone down because Jewish propaganda has been disseminated via Hollywood movies and TV shows and stuff, and neo-Marxism on campuses, and this has all brainwashed the youth and made them not want to have kids. Otherwise, it's God wants you to have kids, and it's a natural instinct to have kids unless you're brainwashed out of it. That's the idea. And they don't understand that that's not the driving force of why birth rates in developed countries go down. Look at Asia. They're actually ahead of us in this department. Look at Japan or South Korea. All developed countries, the birth rate goes down. And the more educated a population is often, too, the lower the birth rate is. This is why religion is one tool, a social tool that's used to keep the population going. So you have a continuously expanding working class of people to use for various causes. So anyway, when you're trying to explain to a lot of these right-wing guys like why the birth rates are going down, they have a sort of mental block from them being willing to accept the truth, and they have to lash out and blame something, because the truth is like. There's also an irony here, right? Like, I just want to point this out. They also really hate communism and socialism. Like, communist countries have no problem with demographic replacement. The problem in North America and Canada and these Western countries being flooded with immigrants is that this is just a natural byproduct of neoliberalism and of capitalism. You can't make that any more clear. There's no racial loyalty between rich elites and working class people. It doesn't work like that. Rich elites just want to help their own direct family line reproduce. Maybe they don't care about anything else except being elite. This has been true for all of history. So back over to fiat currency, this idea that if we what we need is more money, and we need people to be able to get work easier, and we need them to be able to make money so that they can afford to have kids. If you think that this is like something that needs to be done, then you should want other white people to be able to be middle class. You should want them to be able to have more stuff. And we're in this, state capitalist system that is headed into basically a cyberpunk future. I don't know if you guys like science fiction or not, but I'm a huge science fiction fan, especially when it comes to like cyberpunk, which is a genre of sci-fi kind of defined by high tech, low life. It usually like depicts a future like in Blade Runner or Elysium or something like that, where a small amount of people, like it's a natural consequence of where capitalism takes us, right? Like, it's not, capitalism isn't bringing about Star Trek. That's crazy. That's socialism. Like, if you really think, I know, like, we can get into a whole other video on how to interpret Star Trek, but my point is, with our type of capitalism, it's very predictably going to just end up in like a cyberpunk dystopia, corporatocracy, where corporations run everything, and you have like Weyland Yutani Corp and shit like that, and like Fight Club said, right? Like the first flag on Mars will probably be a Pepsi flag or Facebook or something like that. And it's gross and it's sad, because what these sort of anarcho-capitalists and these hardcore capitalist people all miss is that, once you don't have a government anymore, you're clearly going to just be ruled by a corporation, which is like way worse than a corrupt government. Like, especially like in democracy, at least there's a theoretical mechanism for some kind of change. Like when you're in a corporation, that's pure fascism from the top down, and it doesn't care about human life. Like this is the thing that white identitarians need. I just keep harping on this point. Like capitalism some of you I understand are not hardcore capitalists. It's a range of people, but there are people that are wedded to this idea of capitalism out there that are also like worried about like their race and stuff. You have to realize like capitalism is a huge part of your problem, and it's an antisocial system. It doesn't make any sense. What's really going on, by the way, is like white people aren't going extinct. There's more white people on the planet than there's ever been. It's just white people are less proportionate to the other people on the planet because the population has ballooned. So really, it's nonsense to think white people are going extinct. What people are worried about on the right is that there's less of a proportion of white people to other people. When all that means is that they're really worried about status, the status that comes along with being white. They're not actually worried about the welfare of other white people. It's most right-wing stuff, especially capitalism, and the reasoning behind it is just greed. They don't actually give a fuck about the welfare of their other people. They just want other people to breed so that they have more value in their own whiteness. Their social status is higher because whites, impose this empire on the world. This is the other thing they don't seem to understand, is that the world is set up as a hierarchy where America is imposing itself on them, like the financial system on them. They're advocating two things, because if they ever got what they wanted with like Bitcoin becoming an actual alternative to the fiat currency that America has, it would undermine their own empire, which is maintained through controlling the currency. So again, like, they're a complete mix of contradictions and different things, and the answer to all this is to get rid of all this retarded thinking that's been programmed into these right-wing people from YouTube, and just understand that if you come over to the left, we can solve these problems much easier. Like the problem with Canada's cell phones, I made a video about this. It's not more competition. We don't need 20 cell phone companies to have reasonably priced cell phone plans in Canada. We just need regulations that protect the consumers and not the corporations. In other words, a system that's about making things better for people and not protecting markets. People before markets. You guys that are insisting on putting markets before people and then not understanding why your people aren't doing very well need to figure this out. So for those of you out there who are on the right, and you're worried about whites being replaced, and you don't accept the theory that it's because of neoliberal capitalism and corporations taking advantage of cheap labor, and you're convinced that the Jews somehow pull all the strings and have orchestrated all of this, and that whites aren't to blame or anything, I just think that you guys should think a little bit more about what you're saying. Like, with a finite currency, right, there's a reason why we don't use that, and it's not because of, I've seen all the conspiracy stuff that people are talking about. People that think I'm not aware of, I'm not a pseudo-intellectual. I've read all of this stuff, right? I'm the only person I know is well-rounded in me. I've done lots of videos on, Jewish supremacy literature, and I've seen Battle Europa and all this stuff. And these books aren't for show. Like, if you want to talk about fascism or anything, we can talk about fascism or any neoliberalism, or you want to talk about like any of the stuff like the Austrian school stuff, like we can talk about it. Like most people haven't read, they're not well rounded, right? Like these guys that are usually into like Friedman and all that stuff. They haven't literally read like Lenin, right? Like I was just going through this stuff the other day, left-wing communism, infantile disorder. Like, they wouldn't have any idea what any of the context was for this stuff because they're so far down these rabbit holes. But doing thought experiment briefly, right? If you have let's say you have 100 white people on an island, you have a little white colony, right? And you have these finite amount of gold coins that you're using as a currency, and you have 300 coins, and you make everybody have a little business, and they're doing a little barter economy or whatever. I should use a number higher than the Dunbar number, so let's make that 500 just for the math. It's all the same. The point remains. Let's even make it like 10,000 people. If you have a finite amount of coins and all these people start breeding, you're gonna have a lot more people pretty soon and the same amount of money. Capitalism is inherently unstable. That's why it goes into recessions all the time. In America, it's like 5 to 7 years. So you have to be able to stimulate it. And when you have a finite asset, there's no incentive to spend it. Bitcoin maximalists are insane. People that are buying Bitcoin because they understand it's a speculative asset, that's clever, because if they cash out at the right time, they'll make a lot of profit. But they understand what they're doing. That's not the same thing as these Bitcoin maximalists that have this weird fantasy that Bitcoin's going to become some kind of alternative to the mainstream, because it won't for so many obvious reasons, nor should it. So again, if you were going to be on that island and you're going to encourage everyone to breed, you're going to want a way to add more money to the economy so that everybody can grow together, because it's better if the whole economy grows than to have all of those coins monopolized really quickly into a small amount of people's hands. By the way, I wanted to point this out to you guys. I'm a huge fan of David Graeber. I read a lot of his books. I like pirates and shit too, so this pirate book that he wrote was pretty cool. He was an anarchist intellectual. But I was reading Debt the First 5,000 Years, and to understand money evolved for blood feuds and to pay soldiers and stuff. But relatively recently, it didn't evolve from barter. There's like no evidence for that. We are a communal species, and when we converted to agriculture, for at least 5,000 years, we were basically an agricultural type of people that were using like a type of debt for like reciprocating. Mostly when you're farmers, the weather is unpredictable, and some people are going to have a good crop and some people aren't. So some harvests you borrow from the group surplus, and some in other years you pay back into it through your farms, and they keep a tab of that. But there's no actual like money. And so debt is a natural thing that precedes money, and it's still group oriented. Money, and this idea that libertarians have, that it evolved out of barter, is crazy. And having an asset that is finite makes it people not want to spend it, and we need the opposite right now. We need to be able to give people jobs so they're making enough money so that they could have responsibly, reproduce. Because I definitely do not encourage, like my grandparents were poor, my Catholic grandparents, and they had 10 kids, which I think is insane, which is completely irresponsible and stupid. So, I'm just thinking that if those of you that truly want white people to reproduce more should look at, the effects on socialist countries and capitalist countries and think, which would work out better for my people if you genuinely, as you say you do, care about your people. Or you should look at like what's better for you in the short term. And actually at this point, unless you're already rich, socialism's still better for you. But you should just admit what you're really attracted to capitalism for, because capitalism is not conducive to building community. It's antithetical to it, right? So just wanted to make these points for you guys to think about, and welcome feedback as always. Feel free, leave your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video.